Hi Year 10s. Right, in this video I'm very excited to be at a point with you guys where all of this expanding stuff that we've done so far, all of this factorizing stuff that we've done, it all leads to this point where we start to solve a special kind of equation called a quadratic equation. And so when you've got two things timesing together to equal 0, we call that in mathematics a quadratic equation. And quad meaning 4, so you've kind of got 4 aspects of this equation that contribute to making it 0. Now it's quite an intimidating name, but don't worry, it's actually a simple concept when we get to it. So just think of it as being really awesome that you can solve an equation that's called a quadratic equation. That's something you can go home and tell your parents tonight. I learned to solve a quadratic. And they'll be like, what is that? Okay, anyway, let's start by copying out the question, because that's one of the key steps with algebra, is always copying out the question first. Okay, and let's think a little bit about what's going on here. So I've got two sets of brackets. Here's my first set of brackets, and here's my other set of brackets. And so we need to think to ourselves, well, in algebra, when you've got brackets written next to each other, what does it actually mean? Well, it actually means that we're timesing them, okay? But we don't bother writing the times in. So whenever you've got two sets of brackets beside each other, you can think of them as timesing together. So this bracket times this bracket equals 0. That's what this equation says. So you've got to think to yourself, well, you know, what number times, you know, any number equals 0? So what times 5, for instance, equals 0? So you need to have a bit of a think about that. Well, what do I know about numbers? What number times with another number to make 0? Well, that number has to be 0. That's the only way it works. In fact, 0 times any number will always equal 0. Okay, so 0 even times x will be 0. And that's the important part here. So one of these brackets has to be equal to 0. How do we know which one it's going to be? Well, that's the thing, we don't. So what we say instead is that one of them is, we just don't know which. So we write either x plus 5, which is this first bracket here, x plus 5, we say that either that equals 0, or the other bracket, x minus 2 equals 0. So we're not saying we know which one it is, we're just saying that we know it's got to be one of them, because how else could you get two numbers to times to be 0? So once we've gotten this far, we're just solving these equations for x. So we're going to subtract 5 from both sides for this equation. 5's add to 0, we're just left with x. And on this side, 0 minus 5, that's going to be negative 5. So there's one solution, x could equal 5. Or another possible solution, if we solve this equation by adding 2 to both sides, x could be 2. So we have two solutions for these quadratic equations. So you'll see there that I've got some very clearly set out work. You need to do your working exactly like that as well, and make sure that you're saying that either one bracket or the other bracket. So you've got two solutions, and you've got the or there to say, well, it could be either of them. Okay? So a bit of an unusual concept there, but it kind of makes sense, because you should know that any number times 0 is 0. But you'll definitely need to practice a lot of these. So I've got exercise 11.15. Just do the evens. That should give you enough practice. And of course, you must ask questions if you have any worries. But this is a really cool thing that you're able to do since learning all of that factorizing and expanding stuff before.